and welcome back to Life as a Law Student. My name is Nicole, and this video is the second part of a conversation that I had with Hamada Zahawi, CEO and founder of Right Track Admissions, regarding what to do if you are already in law school or, like me, have recently graduated. This is the second part of that conversation that we started a couple weeks ago, so if you want to check that out, it is right here for you to view. But today we are moving beyond law school admissions and towards the graduation stage. Hope you enjoy. All right, Hamada, welcome back to the channel. We talked last time when you were here about admissions materials. And today I wanted to address students who are watching the channel more in my stage of law school, which is approaching graduation or just having graduated, waiting on bar exam results, maybe even already in their career. From the outside looking in, your law school life sounds amazing, just like traveling the world and making money. The wonders of pre-pandemic law school. Is there anything that maybe you didn't do or that you did do but learned along the way that you think people should be applying to law school?
There was a point where there was diminishing returns. I just wasn't performing to the best of my abilities in law school. But sometimes when you try less hard and you work smarter and not harder, you will perform better in law school. Maybe it's the fact that you're taking electives. Maybe it's the fact that you are not taking courses that you're really interested in versus the ones that you have to, but you start to do better and better. And I think what really helped was my grades were improving, yes, but I was able to publish an article on the law review, a note. And then I matched that by getting onto the law review because you're invited to get to the law review if you publish on the law review. And I think that really helped give me added credibility when I was in law school to prepare me to get those jobs. The reality is, Nicole, personally, there was nothing I did in law school per se that geared me up perfectly for my post-law school life. I did take securities law and project finance, and I ended up getting a law firm job in securities law and project finance. So that did help. But I only did that for less than a year before I was laid off because of the economic crisis of 2008, 2009. But instead of getting another law firm job, I leveraged the fact that I did that and I started Right Track, oddly enough. So I had that entrepreneurial spirit. And because I didn't have debt, I was able to say I can bite the bullet and not make a lot of money doing something I really cared about. And I think that was very important for me. And then eventually I was helping a client and he was working for the US government and said, why don't you think about that? And that's when I applied for the US government. Again, I didn't have a lot of debt. So I said, I could take a hit in terms of my finances. And I wanted to do something more noble than purely financial. And the fact I did that international relations degree, the fact I studied some treaty law, some public policy law, helped me in that direction. So I cast a very wide net in law school. And I think eventually every time I want to make a career trajectory, I would go back to my law school days, think about some of the classes I had taken, and then leverage that in the interviews or in the applications or whatever it was.
Yeah. I'm glad that you brought that up because in our last video, you talked about how your career has just hit on all these different areas of law. And I know a lot of my classmates and a lot of my subscribers are interested in a lot of things. My own path and journey has been different in that I knew going into law school what I wanted to do. It hasn't changed, and I'm gonna go do it as soon as I pass the bar. I don't anticipate my career taking too much of a pivot, maybe like location wise, but probably I'll always be in the area of criminal law. And that's not the case for a lot of lawyers. Even people at internships I've known at prosecution agencies are moving in and out of family law, in and out of private practice. So I don't feel like I have a lot of advice to give people, and that seems to be the majority. So as somebody who has been through that process of having experience in multiple different areas, taking classes in multiple different areas, and coaching other people as they pivot their careers, what advice can you give people who are kind of looking out at graduation and thinking, where the heck do I go? And what if I don't like it there?
That's exactly right, Nicole. I mean, I'm not going to say a unicorn in that fact that you know what you want to do and you're going to go into it. I think there's quite a few people in your camp, but they may have a change of heart later on. Life circumstances, disinterest, time expenditure, all kinds of other things that can happen. But suffice it to say, yes, I have had many different trajectories. I started transactional law, whether it was initially international commercial, project finance, um, country specific type of law. And then I ended up working international development, traveling all over the world, advising governments on how to improve their laws for trade and investment under the Department of Commerce. A completely different area of law. It was policy related, it was more international law related, and it was comparative law related, right? Because you were
Mm.
looking at different areas and in jurisdictions. And then I left that and ended up doing transactional law with my own consulting firm, looking over just your general contracts and stuff like that, which is always something good to hone on, right?
Yeah.
And then during that, I ended up, of all ironic things, I ended up working with veterans to get their disability benefits.
Wow.
Became a VA accredited lawyer, and now I'm kind of running the operations of the firm, who are helping veterans all over the U.S. It's a federal issue and it's administrative law in nature.
Mm.
So I've like changed courses many times. Look, we learn law school. You don't hyper focus on IP law from the jump. You're still going to take constitutional law. You're still going to take criminal law. You're still going to take tort law, right? And in the bar, you're tested on 15, 16, 17 different topics. It just so happens during your course of your career that you really have to hone in. The difference is, if you remain a generalist, it's harder sometimes to make a lot of money.
Hmm.
If you start to hyper focus, then people are going to pay for your specialty. Mm-hmm.
Some of the things you did in law school were to take a lot of jobs in other countries, to take jobs in different areas before you had ever graduated, to really maximize those opportunities before you had crossed that stage and gotten the diploma. So it sounds like you were pretty well set up post-graduation to enter a lot of different areas and change things as either circumstances necessitated or you wanted to. What do you think people should be doing after they graduate to continue maximize those opportunities? If you're already in a job, 9 to 5, you're billing however many hours a year, how do you actually go about practically making those changes and pivoting to see if a different area of law is what you want to do next?
I think once you're in the legal field, look, it was a circumstance. Would I have left the law firm life had I not been laid off because of the economic crisis? I think so. It would reach that point. The reality is too, Nicole, I wasn't billing a lot. So I was chilling. And then it just kind of caught up with me. It wasn't like I was billing a hyper billing, but if I start seeing my life falling apart, yeah, I would change. But then that's a chicken or the egg. Your life is falling apart. Now you want to change. I think it's imperative that you do continuing legal education courses. I think it's imperative that you go to networking events. I think it's imperative that you touch base with all the people that you made friends with in law school and see what they're doing. Keep checking LinkedIn so you can get peeved at yourself and being like, this person just did that. I should look into that, right? I think these are important factors that you constantly keep your finger on the pulse, because you don't want to stagnate unless you really, really know this is where you want to go. Or Nicole, your family has a law firm and you decided, I'm going to go and take over that firm. Then maybe you lack choice. But in the end of the day, there's so many different ways to come at it. And just you'll start seeing your friends. They'll start at a law firm, they'll hate life, they'll burn out, and they'll go in-house. And then they'll jump from in-house to in-house positions because they're making decent amount of money, but their hours are controlled and they're fine with it, right? So you'll start seeing people's lives ebb and flow. And remember, I resigned from the US government and went back to graduate school and got my second master's at Harvard and a master's in public administration right in the midst of my career. Why? Because I wanted to take stock of what I'd done and figure out how I can pivot to the next thing. And I figured that grad school is a great way of doing that as a segue. Some people don't want to make that investment. Some people are willing to do it. So be honest with yourself. And if that's something that makes sense, then chase that dream. Try it out. Go back to that graduate program. Try that thing. Move to the other country, because you only got one shot at life. You want to maximize it so you can sit back when you're older and be like, wow, what a trip.
Although life definitely isn't all about work, work is the thing that you're going to spend a lot of your life doing. So make sure that you're doing something that you love, that you're excited to go to work every day. And if it becomes the case that a job you loved yesterday no longer is doing it for you, like, get out of there, go to something else. There's so many opportunities, especially for people who have the opportunity to graduate from law school. That degree does take you a lot of places. And if you're able to go to a school, like we talked about in the last video, that has a lot of networking opportunities, chances are you're going to know somebody who can get you through the next door, right?
Yeah, I mean, again, like when I got into the government, it was because a friend of mine, I was helping him with his applications, told me about it, and I had not even given it any serious thought.
Hmm.
And then he really went to bat for me within a small sub agency of a big department, and was able to get the job. And so I paid it forward by doing the same thing for at least three other people who I had known outside of the job, who had given indications that they were interested in the space or would be a
Hmm.
good fit, and then went to bat and got them in there. And I kept doing that over the course of my life. I think it's super, super important that you are that you give back, that you're honest, and that you help other folks with their application.
Can you talk more about what it's been like running Right Track while also practicing as a lawyer? I imagine there's a lot of entrepreneurial spirits out there who are graduating and have multiple interests beyond just strictly practicing law. So what's that been like?
So for me, Right Track I made it work for me. And then eventually I started hiring a team and then a whole back office and then creating manuals and systems and proprietary ways of being able to write your essays. And we talked about the ABCs or ICE or whatever different things I've come up with to make the application smoother for people. And I codified all of that and then trained people on it. So I just kind of scaled up. So if you have a skill and you have an interest in something, dabble in entrepreneurship. It's incredibly easy. You're a lawyer, so you probably could set up a company pretty easy as an LLC, and then just dabble with it. Don't, spend a little bit, think through it. There's all kinds of self-help books on this stuff in terms of like creating your own venture, and then see where it goes. And if it goes somewhere where it's adding, a slush fund for you, and you're not putting a ton of time and spending a lot of money on it, do it.
Before we wrap up this conversation, I definitely want to bring it back to students like me. I mean, I'll take the advice from you myself. How are you balancing bar prep with finding a job? Maybe you don't have a job offer yet and graduation's coming up. What do you do in this like weird stage of transitioning from 3L to a lawyer?
So you're still in law school, you're a 3L student, or do you mean you've graduated and now you're trying to transition out after graduation?
Both, whatever you got for either of those people.
Let's imagine you're a 3L without a job, right? What are you doing? You've got to basically use your time wisely. Your time is not going to be used wisely trying to ace every class. Your time is to network. Your time is to go out there and check out different organizations. Your job is to apply full time to different opportunities because you do want to nail a job before you graduate. But once you wrap up law school and you walk that stage, you got to switch everything off and focus on the bar. Nothing else matters. Now, we finished the bar exam and you don't know the results. So take a month off, right? But you're double down now in debt because you got school debt and you paid that $5,000 for Barbary, and now you're really annoyed at yourself because you're like, man, how am I going to pay all this off? But you're doing I would still give yourself a couple of weeks to be good to yourself mentally, to be in the right mental space. And then you're back at it. You're back out the interviews and sending applications. And sometimes you have to start from, hey, listen, I just want to work at your firm. Don't have to pay me. I love what you guys do. Let me just start there. When I pass the bar, we can talk. You don't pass the bar, you can then then you can do things like Up Counsel. You've heard of Up Counsel?
I have not.
Free. It's free. It's a freelance website, so it's freelancing. It's kind of like Upwork or like Fiverr, and you're
Oh, okay.
basically providing your services as a lawyer and doing contracts and all kinds of stuff. Some of them don't require you have a bar, and you can take on legal work.
Oh,
You
nice.
can make ends meet that way, right? Just enough to then be able to weigh and take the bar exam again. But get ready to push yourself down, knowing that it's kind of like a spring. Take a crappier job, start saying I don't want pay, and then slowly, 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 once you get that bar under your belt, once you figure out where you want to go, boom, you just spring up to where you want to be. And I have all kinds of friends that have done that. I had a friend of mine who failed the bar, I think 3 times, finally took it in another state, which was much easier. He just needed it on a federal level. And in the meantime, took all kinds of jobs. And then eventually, oddly enough, one of the jobs then knew somebody who knew somebody, got a job there, and he was off to the races.
Yeah.
So don't feel like that first job, if you didn't nail it or you don't have a job lined up, there's going to be resources out there. Plan it out, focus on the bar exam because that is an inhibitor. but be good to yourself and then cast a wide net and then be prepared to take crappier roles for free to know that once you pass the bar and proved yourself.
Hmm.
I mean, think about that, Nicole. Maybe you haven't seen this, but I mean, I work for an organization where if somebody came out and said, listen, I want to prove myself, and we put them in as a free intern and they crush it, do you think I'm going to go back to the job market and start looking for somebody to hire? Or I'm going to look at the person that knows the system better,
Right.
immediately ready to be like, you know what? They're good enough. Bring them on. And now you got a job.
I also want to echo what you said about networking during your last couple semesters of law school. I'll keep it brief, but my last internship that directly led into my hopefully post-grad job, as long as I pass in October, was a direct result of just cold calling offices who had some kind of very tenuous connection to my law school and being like, hey, I'm a student, I'm interested in the area of work that you're doing, can you just tell me about it? And I would just come up with like a list of generic questions about the office, about their personal experiences, and just let them talk, because people love talking about themselves. And it's the easiest way ever to feel like they're giving back, is to just get on a 20-minute phone call with a law student. Like, they don't care, they'll never remember it, but then in 3 months you can do what I did and email them and be like, hey, remember how we had a phone call a couple months ago, we talked about this and this, it was really great, hey, I need a job like today. That was literally an email I had to send, because an internship I had set up for this last spring fell through, and I was literally moving out of my apartment in 3 days. And so I sent out these 3 emails to people I had talked with over the phone over the last couple months of my time in law school. And within 24 hours, I had 2 new job offers, just because I could reliably say, we've talked before, I made the effort to reach out, like
100%.
it doesn't take a lot to do that, and the returns were incredible.
Yeah, I think I mean there's so many ways to do that. I think you nailed it that way. You can message people on LinkedIn again for a small conversation, especially if you have common friends. If there's a point that you really want to bring across and you want to have a quick conversation, people want to pay it forward, especially if you have the credentials that they're willing to kind of go to bat for, and they'll take time out of their day to have a quick conversation with you. And like you said, just reference that down the road. They're like, wow, that person did a lot more than the other person who just emailed me right now, so give me a job. And then even if they don't give you a job, they slowly can become mentors, and then
Yep.
eventually it'll pay itself off later on. So put in the effort and think out of the box, because if you're thinking out of the box, somebody else isn't, and you're already ahead of them. So
Yep.
that's what you want to be thinking about, and that point. And really, network from the jump. Your first year is tough, but really, really network from the jump, because you don't want to come out of also being disingenuous your last 3 weeks of law school. Be like, hey, do you remember me? Oh, I don't remember you at all. You never talked to me. You want to basically be that person that's popular, that is talking to different folks, that is involved in organizations. And I'll end with this. When I was at Harvard, I wrote a quick blog, post, and I said there's 9 things you really want to be thinking about. Things I wish I had known. But one thing I did know, and that was very important to me, was that other than the diploma on your wall, the education in your brain, the last factor that you have, and Nicole, I'm sure you can attest to this, is your reputation. If you are known to be the flaky person, the mean person, the person's not a team player in law school, you can bet nobody's going to go out of their way for you when you ask for a job years later. There's too many other people. They're not going to be forgiving. So your reputation is massively important. So
Yep.
be a good person when you're in law school, and people will pay that back in dividends later on in your career.
I really thank you for taking the time to share your wealth of advice and experience with us here on the channel. You're welcome back anytime.
Thank you for having me, Nicole.
I really hope that you found this video helpful and that it has encouraged you in this stage of life that I myself am currently exploring, having recently graduated from law school, taken the bar exam, now awaiting results and staring my future in the face. All of these life pivots can be really challenging, but I'm grateful for the ways that we as a community can support and encourage one another and give good advice when we find some to share. Once again, Right Track's information is in the description box below if you want to check them out, and I will see you guys next time. Until then, God bless.